Hey guys, it's Mr. Co. I'm here to go over the Lesson 7 concept development with you. Let's go ahead and take a look at our I can statement. So in today's lesson, we are going to be able to model mixed numbers with units of hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, and hundredths in expanded form and on the place value chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be doing first. So I want you to have a piece of paper ready to kind of take notes and work out the problems as we go. So this can be your math notebook if you have it. This can be a piece of printer paper. This can be a piece of line paper, any kind of paper to take these notes on. I want you to have that ready, okay? All right, so let's look at number 1. So we're going to be using place value discs to model mixed numbers with units of hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, and hundredths on a place value chart. So what that means is I want you guys to start off by drawing place value discs to represent our number here, 378 and 73 hundredths. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a second to draw your place value discs. Go ahead and pause the video and then play it when you are ready to check your answer. All right, let's go ahead and draw those place value discs. Remember, if maybe you weren't sure how to get started, you can always play the video a little bit to watch me start to work it out, and then you can go ahead and pause it again and then finish it up if you feel like that maybe all you needed was me to get started for you, and then you'd be ready to move on your own. So you can always pause whenever you need to. That's the benefit of a video. So if you weren't sure how to get started, you can kind of watch me go through it starting off and then pause it and then finish it out. All right, so we have 3 hundredths here, so I'm going to be drawing 3 discs to represent my hundreds. So I'm going to draw 3 discs with 100 in each disc. Now my tenths, I'm going to be drawing 7 discs to represent my tens place by drawing 7 discs with 110 in each. And moving on to my ones, I'm going to be drawing 8 ones discs. All right, now let's take a look at our tenths. So we have 7 tenths, so I am going to be drawing 7 tenths discs, and how we are going to be recording our tenths disc is, if you notice, our tenths place is immediately to the right of our decimal. So if I draw a decimal right here and then record a 1 right next to it, that is going to represent my tenths. We can also draw a 0 to hold a place in the ones. I know that's kind of how you've been used to seeing your tenths discs drawn, so either works. You can either do it as 0.1 or 0.1. Both will work. They're both equal. All right, now let's do our hundredths. So if we look, our hundredths are one place value to the right of our tenths. So I'm going to draw 3 discs, and then I'm going to record my decimal. I'm going to have a 0 take the place of the tenths, and then next to my tenths, I'm going to record my hundredths. So that's going to be written out as 0.01. All right, so that is how we would record our hundredths. Now, after recording your place value discs, I want us to record our number in unit form. So for those of you who don't remember, unit form is when we write out the number of units and then the specific unit in words. So for example, 300 in unit form is 300. So I want you to go ahead and finish up the rest of the number, writing the rest of it in unit form. Go ahead and pause the video, and then you can play it whenever you're ready to go over the answer. All right, so let's keep on writing this out. So we have 3 hundredths, 7 tenths, 8 ones, 7 tenths, making sure they include that TH, and 3 hundredths. All right, so now we have recorded our number in unit form. I would like you to now draw a place value chart. We are going to be recording this number in our place value chart, but I also want to talk about maybe how this place value chart is different from ones that we've used in the past. So go ahead and pause the video and draw a place value chart that looks like the one that I have here. Okay, so I want you to think about how is this place value chart different from ones that we have used in the past. Think about what do we see here that might be different from what we have previously seen either earlier in the year or in previous years before this one. You would be correct if you're saying that, oh, Mr. Coe, it's got a decimal point. We're including tenths now. We're including hundredths now. Yes, you would be right. So we have some new additions to our place value chart, just like when it was in the beginning of the year for Module 1. We added on 10 thousandths and 100 thousandths and millionths into our place value chart. So let's go ahead and record our number in our place value chart. Don't forget the decimal. All right, so now I want us to look at our place value chart now that we've recorded our decimal in here. I want you to think which two place values is the 3 written in. And I want you to tell me, so don't be afraid to say it aloud, which two place values is the 3 written in? I want you to tell me the higher place value first. If you said the hundreds first as our higher place value that the 3 is located in, you would be correct. So our 3 is located in the hundreds and the hundredths. Now the digit 7 is written in which two place values? Go ahead and tell me. I want you to tell me the largest place value first again. If you said that the 7 is located in the tens place and you told me that first as the higher place value, then you would be correct. Our 7 is located in the tens, which is the higher of the 2, and it's also located in the tenths. Now what about the 8? Where is the 8 located? You would be correct if you told me that it was located in the ones place. All right, now that we've kind of gotten a little bit more familiar with our different place values, I want us to move on to a new example. So go ahead and record our new number, 301 and 56 hundredths, on your blank sheet of paper. And just like we did before, we are going to be recording those place value discs. So if you are ready to start recording those place value discs for 301 and 56 hundredths, you go ahead and start working. Go ahead and pause the video to give yourself some time to work. All right, so we are ready to record those place value discs for 301 and 56 hundredths. So how many hundreds do I have? I have 3. So I'm going to be drawing 3 discs to represent my hundredths place. Hundreds place. And I'm going to record 100 in each one. So I've got 3 representing 300. Do I have any tens? No, I do not. So I am not going to draw any place value discs for my tens place because it does not have a value. Now what about my ones? I have 1 1, so I'm going to draw 1 disc with a 1 inside to represent my ones. What about my tenths? I have 5 tenths, so I'm going to draw 5 place value discs to represent my tenths place, and I'm going to record it as 0.1. Remember that 1 represents our tenths place. It's immediately to the right of the decimal. And now our hundredths. So we're going to record 6 hundredths with our 1 moving over 1 more place to the right. So we are going to be recording our hundredths as 0.01. Okay, so Moving right along, just like we did in our other example, we wrote out our number in unit form. So I want you to go ahead, pause the video, and write out your number in unit form. Remember, you can always rewind to look and see how we wrote out our unit form in the first example to help you with this example as well. All right, so remember how our unit form, we give the number of units and then we write out the actual unit in words. So we are starting in the hundreds place. We have 3 hundredths. We have 0 tens, so I'm not going to record that in my unit form because it does not add any value to my unit form. I'm going to write out my 1 1, 5 tenths with the th at the end, and then 6 hundredths. All right, so now that you recorded that number in unit form, all right, so let's go ahead and record our number in our place value chart. So we have 3 hundredths, so we are going to record a 3 in the hundreds place. We have 0 tens, so 0 goes in the tens place. We have 1 1, don't forget that decimal, 5 tenths, 6 hundredths. All right, so that completes our second example for problem number 1. So now let's go ahead and move on to problem number 2. So we are going to be saying the value of each digit. All right, so if this was us being in a normal classroom, I'd probably be asking you to tell me the digits aloud and I would be able to hear your answer. But I'm still going to ask you to do the same thing. You just might sound a little bit weird to some of the people who you live with. All right, so as with any place value chart, the value of each digit is determined by the place value. So the place value, or the value of the hundreds, is what? It is 300. What about the value of the hundredths? That's right, it's 3 hundredths. So you might be thinking, Miss Jaco, hundreds, hundredths, these values sound so much alike. I want you to think, how do you think you could tell the hundreds and the hundredths apart? Go ahead and give yourself a little bit of time to think and pause the video whenever, pause the video, give yourself some time to think and play it whenever you are ready to go over the answer. All right, so you might have been thinking of a couple things. We can think, well, one is hundreds, one is hundredths. One's got a th at the end and one does not. One is a whole number, 100. One is a fraction, a hundredth. You might think it's easier to see the values of the digit when we actually write them out in standard form. So for example, we have 300 here, and we have 3 hundredths here. You can clearly see there is a difference between those numbers because they do not even look the same. You might also be thinking that there are 100 hundredths in 1 and 100 ones in 100. 100 times 100 is 1,000. There's 1,000 hundredths in 100. So bouncing off of that, the digit 3 has a greater value in which place? That's right, the hundreds. Now I want you to say the value of the digit in the tens place. That's right, it's 70. Now what about the value of the digit in the tenths place? That's right, it's 7 tenths. So once again, these values also sound very much alike. How do you think that they're different? Well, they're different in the same way that hundreds and hundredths are different. One is a 10, one is a tenth. One is written as 1 0, and one is written as 1.0, so one has a decimal included. Now, the digit 7 would have a greater value in which place? That's right, the tens place. Now, what do you think the value of the 8 would be? That's right, the value of the 8 is just 8. So I'm going to finish writing out my values of each of my place values here so you can clearly see. So the value of the 3 in the hundreds place is 300. The value of the tens place is 70. The value of the 8 in the ones place is just 8. The value of the 7 in the tens place is 7/10, and the value of the 3 in the hundreds place is 3/100. All right, so I kind of just moved us down here to look at a new example. So I want you to tell me, we're going to start in the hundreds, what is the value of the hundreds place? That's right, it is 900. What about the value of the 2 in the tens place? That's right, it has a value of 20. And what about the value of the 0 in the ones place? That's right, it has a value of 0. It has a value of nothing because it does not have any digit in that place value. Now, what about the tenths? That's right, 3/10. And then the hundredths? That's right, 7/100. All right, so now that we've kind of reviewed how to identify the values of our place values, then we are going to now use this to help us write some numbers in expanded form. All right, so here we are now at problem 3. So we are going to be expressing a decimal number in decimal and fraction expanded form. So you might remember from lesson 3 that you guys did this kind of already in that problem set where we wrote out the expanded form of some numbers. Now, some of those numbers were smaller. I don't think any included the hundreds place, so we're kind of going to be expanding on that knowledge here. So you guys might be used to our expanded form that we have been doing since the beginning of the year, where we write out an addition sentence that shows the value of each of our digits. So connecting what we did just in number 2, what is the value of the 3 in the hundreds place? It is 300. The value of the 7 in the tens is 70. The value of the 8 is 8. The value of the tenths is 7/10, and then the value of the hundredths is 3/100. So what we're used to doing is kind of just throwing a little addition symbol in between those values and calling it a day. Now, what you should remember from lesson 3 is that instead we are showing each of these add-ins. Remember, an add-in is what we add together. So this equation has 5 add-ins. We are expressing each add-in as the product of the number of units and the size of the units. So what I mean by that is we are expressing 300 as a product, which means it's a multiplication equation. We are expressing 300 as the number of units and the size of the unit. So the size of the unit is 100. And the number of units is 3. So we can kind of connect that back to our unit form where we have 3 hundreds. Well, that's the same thing as doing 3 times 100. And we're going to include our little addition symbol in between each multiplication problem, because you can kind of think 3 times 100 is 300. We would be adding it to all the other products that we're going to write out here. So once again, going off of what I said, we are showing each value as a product of the size of the unit and the number of units. So the size of our unit in our tens place is 10, and the number is 7. So we have 7 tens in our tens place. So we are going to record our product or our multiplication equation as 7 times 10. Now for 8. What is our unit? It's ones. How many ones do we have? We have 8. What about for 7/10? We need to decide, are we going to record this in decimal or fraction expanded form, because we will need to do both. I'll go ahead and just do decimal form first since that's how it's listed. So I'm just going to put a D for decimal form. And so I'm going to write out my 7/10, because what's my unit? It's tenths. So I'm going to write 0.1. And how many do I have? I have 7 of them. Now let's do our 300ths. So my unit is hundredths. I'm going to make sure to record that one as one more to the right. And how many do I have? I've got 3. And all together, because it's kind of like we broke apart each of these values into a multiplication equation. So all together, if we were to re-multiply these all together, we would get the addition sentence that I wrote up here. And all together, it would equal that 378 and 73/100. Now in fraction form, the only thing that we're going to be changing here about the equation is how we write out our numbers that are less than 1. So instead of 1/10 in decimal form, we're going to write it as a fraction form. Instead of 100th in decimal form, we're going to write it in fraction form. So our whole numbers can stay the same. So we can just still write this out as, as 3 times 100, and nothing's going to change about our whole numbers. So now that I'm at my fraction form, I'm going to be doing 7 times 1/10 in fraction form, and then 3 times 100th in fraction form. But despite the fact that it's in fraction form, our answer is still going to be the same, but 73/100 is just going to be written as a fraction. Okay. All right, so we've got one more example here that we are going to do before this lesson is done. So let's go back to what we had before. So we wrote down the value of each of our digits, and then we broke it apart into their multiplication sentences. So the value of the 3 in the hundreds place is 300. The value of the 4 in the tens place is 40. The value of the 0 in the ones is 0, so I'm not going to include it in my expanded form because it does not have any value. The value of my 8 in the tenths place is 8/10, and then the value of the 3 in the hundreds place is 300ths. So now we're going to break this down into the number of units and the size of the unit. So here we have hundreds, and how many hundreds do we have? We have 3. And here we are, the size of our unit is tens, number of units that we have is 4. In our tenths place, we're going to do decimal form first again. In our tenths place, we have the size of the unit is tenths, and then the number of units is 8. And in our hundredths, the size of our unit is hundredths, and then the value, or sorry, the size of our unit, the number of our unit is 3. And that is altogether going to equal our 340 and 83/100. For our fraction form, like I said in the other example, our whole numbers are not going to change, just our decimals. So now instead of in decimal form, I have my tenths in fraction form, and instead of hundredths in decimal form, I have it in fraction form. Still, it's all going to equal that 340 and 80. Oh wait, we're writing it as a fraction, not a decimal. I don't know why the eraser isn't letting me do that, but 83/100. All right, so that is going to bring me to the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful and informative, and I hope that it prepares you for the lesson 7 problem set. Now remember, you can always go back, watch this again. Remember, you can always come back to the video if you're struggling with the problem set. I should have the numbers for each problem and what I'm doing for the problem down below in the description box. So hopefully you can use that also to kind of navigate where you need help. So if you need help writing out our expanded forms, then you should see down in the description box like what minutes and stuff it starts at as to where help would in the video that would be located. So once again, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.